Hi, Sue. Hi, Mike.
One. We're on, Robbie.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this September meeting of Bassetlaw District Council's Cabinet. Given the current challenging situation that we all face related to COVID-19, the law has been changed in order to allow for meetings to be held virtually, and that's what we'll be doing this evening. The reason for this is that it will keep everyone safe by maintaining social distancing, and everyone will be able to get on with the work that we need to do. It is very important that all councillors can hear each other, and so in a moment I will be inviting Cabinet members, hopefully in alphabetical order, to introduce themselves, and in that way we'll be able to test broadband connectivity, and hopefully everyone will be able to hear us. What I'll do is that I'll take Cabinet members first and then liaison members. So first of all, Councillor Dukes.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. I can hear everyone just fine. Councillor Lee.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. We do have a number of liaison members, so I will try and take those in alphabetical order also. Councillor Brand.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
Present, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Quigley.
Here.
Thank you very much. Now, we also have a number of officers that are with us to support the meeting. And so I'll hopefully go through a list in a moment just to check that everyone can hear everyone and everyone can participate and support the meeting as needed. So first, Bev Alderson-Sambrook.
Present, Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Armiger.
Absolutely. Present, Chair. I can hear everybody.
Excellent. Mr. Brown.
He's frozen at the minute, Chair.
Okay, I'll just come back to Mr. Brown in a moment.
I'm present, Chair.
Ah, excellent. Karen Childs.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Linda Dorr.
Present, Chair.
Excellent. Dave Hill.
Yes, I'm present, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Craig Taylor.
Yes, I'm present, Chair.
Excellent. Mr. Neil Taylor.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. And Mr. Wormold.
Yes, present, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, because this is a online virtual meeting, if we do lose broadband connectivity at any point, or the meeting becomes inquorate, or the live streaming fails through some computer glitch, then I will adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes in order to allow for people to get reconnected. Now, there are some confidential items on the agenda this evening, and when we reach that point, after a bit of an introduction and an explanation, the live streaming will be drawn to an end. And also subsequent to that stage, we will double check that everyone that remains in the meeting can still participate. Now, because this is a virtual meeting, there's no corporate responsibility for fire procedures as we ordinarily would. However, I would like to highlight that the meeting is being live streamed on social media, so everyone can just ensure that everyone is safe and everything's running as well as it can be. And also, just to try and ensure that everyone can hear each other clearly, if if members could ensure that their microphones are muted when not speaking, that will probably help with background noise. And also be mindful of any interruptions in the background and if those were to occur. So the first item is agenda item 1, and that is the suspension of council procedure rules for up to 15 minutes to allow for questions from members of the public. Members of the public have been given the opportunity to ask a question or questions at the meeting, although I understand no requests have been received. And I'll just turn to the committee clerk just to double check on that point.
Yes, Chairman, I can confirm that no questions have been received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2 is apologies, and have any apologies been received at all?
Chair, just to confirm that there are no apologies for members this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. The next agenda item is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. I'll just turn to the committee clerk just to check if any declarations have been received thus far. I'll turn to the committee clerk first. I can see Mr. Wormald's indicated.
Yes, sorry, Chair, I haven't received any declarations of interest for any members on any items this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At which point I'll next turn to Mr. Wormald, who has indicated, I should say. Mr. Wormald.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just need to declare a pecuniary interest in agenda item 17A, corporate resources arrangements. So I will leave the meeting at that point.
Okay, thank you very much. If there aren't any other declarations of interest, I'll next move on to agenda item 4, which I have as minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of July at pages 7 to 22. So if members could look to those minutes at this point. I am duty bound to ask whether members are happy to accept those as an accurate record of the meeting. I will take, if people want to indicate, then I'll certainly.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. I can see colleagues indicated there, and I'll take those as being accepted as an accurate record. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is minutes for action and implementation, to be found at pages 23 to 26 of the agenda. And in relation to that item, are there any comments or observations at all? I'll take that as a no, in which case I'll move to item 6, which is the outstanding minutes list to be found at pages 27 to 32 of the agenda. And are there any comments or observations in relation to that item at all? I'll take that also as a no. I'll therefore next turn to the forward plan, agenda item 7, to be found at pages 33 to 36 of the agenda. Now, before I ask for endorsement of that forward plan, I will ask as to whether there are any additions or amendments to that forward plan to be proposed at all. If not, and I'll take it that there aren't any further changes or proposals to be made, I'll ask members whether they're happy to approve that forward plan. Thank you very much. I'll take that as approved. The next agenda item that I will turn to is 8A. It's a report of the Cabinet Member for Finance budget monitoring and capital programme update report to the 30th of June 2020. Key decision 830 to be found at pages 37 to 62. And I will turn to the Cabinet Member for Finance, Councillor Evans, to outline the report. Councillor Evans, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is an update on Council's first quarter spending position for 2021, starting with the General Fund revenue budget. The table at 3.7 is a summary of the first quarter position across all portfolios, showing a predicted overspend of 138,000. The main factors to be considered because of the impact of COVID-19 on council finances are twofold. One, underachieved income, and two, additional costs and losses not included within service budget forecasts. Members can see from the table at 3.9 the figures do include government COVID-19 grant income of 1.172 million, but also included our additional costs and losses of 821,000. And further analysis can be seen at Appendix 1. These are unprecedented times, Chair. I must stress how important it is that Bassetlaw Council can not only demonstrate financial resilience, but also that it can manage emerging issues. And this is why close budget monitoring has to be a top priority for all managers. Turning to fees and charges. We all know fees and charges play a significant part in balancing the budget. However, we also know the difficulty when factors external to council impact on the amount of income generated. If we look at the table at paragraph 3.14, we can see the outturn forecast at Q1 is for an underachievement of 320,000 income, mainly due to the impact of COVID-19, and further details can be found at Appendix 1. For the housing revenue account, there is a predicted overspend of 36,000. The details are clearly mapped out in the table at paragraph 3.17, and a detailed analysis is given at Appendix 2. The major factors being: 1, forecast savings of 175,000 on employment costs due to a number of vacant posts, and 2, estimated COVID-19 costs and losses of 228,000. Chair, regarding COVID-19 and the impact on council finances, members know the two key elements are: 1, the extra costs of the pandemic to the council, and 2, the loss of council income as a consequence. Up to now, the government has issued grants towards compensating for these. However, it now appears full compensation may not happen. The latest draft guidance indicates that initially 5% of budgeted income from fees and charges will be deducted from claimed losses, and local authorities will have to absorb this loss. And of the remaining total, 75% of losses will be met by government and the rest met by local authorities. This is explained at paragraph 3.21, along with the details of the principles on which the government has decided losses can be claimed. And I believe this gives members an insight into the difficulties the finance team are dealing with when it comes to the complicated task of estimating and predicting the true financial impact the evolving pandemic will have on this council. Moving to capital programme and expenditure for both the general fund and for the housing revenue account. The initial capital budget for 2021 totaled 22.921 million, and at paragraph 3.25 table 1 shows a reconciliation of approved budget movements, increasing the capital programme to 33.552 million. This gives for the general fund an approved capital budget of 11.173 million, and for the housing revenue account a total approved capital budget of 22.379 million. There are now additions and amendments requiring approval for Q1, and these are: movement between two existing budgets due to a scheme re-evaluation, the Townscape Heritage Project to be moved into capital And I point out that funding of 1.259 million is already in place, and introduction of the Mayfair Centre project into capital with funding of 1.4 million. And further details can be seen in Appendix 3. And these approvals will increase the capital programme by 2.659 million, giving a new total of 35.911 million, and funding has already been secured for the two projects. Chair, the current level of capital expenditure has been greatly affected by COVID-19, with a resultant significant reduction for the first quarter. Only 534,000 or 1.5% of the total budget has been used. Major projects were unable to start. Planned work on council dwellings was delayed. And members can see at paragraph 3.28, table 2, the level of capital expenditure for both the general fund and the housing revenue account at the end of quarter 1. Appendix 4 gives an update on all capital projects. Excuse me. The manner of resourcing the capital programme budget is shown at table 3, and members know capital receipts are low, and this was a key consideration when the capital programme for 2021 up to 24-25 was developed. And table 4 gives a clear picture of council's capital receipts. Chair, in these uncertain times, it is important, I feel, that members are kept updated on Treasury management, and I wish to highlight 3 key elements within Council's Treasury management strategy. The first is borrowing. I can report that in this first quarter there has been no long-term or short-term borrowing by Council. At the end of the 30th of June, Council held 98.863 million in loans. The table at 3.37 shows the long-term loans outstanding at the end of this quarter. Members understand that the budget must balance the interest paid on borrowing against the projected cash flow for the year. It was therefore estimated Council would borrow in year 9.354 million for various capital schemes. This has now been revised to include those schemes that underspent in 2019-20. Therefore, the new total is 12.574 million, but 10.866 million of this borrowing is for the housing revenue account, and it's needed for housing capital improvement and the Radford Street development. The second key element is investment. At the end of this first quarter, Council had a total of 25.520 million invested, as detailed at paragraph 3.40. However, COVID-19 has meant that the following changes came into play. On the 11th of March, the base rate was reduced from 0.75% to 0.25%. And then on the 19th of March, the base rate was further reduced to 0.1%. The outcome, the projected outturn position to March 2021 for investment income is a shortfall of 44,000, which is not included in the original budget. The third issue is the Prudential Indicators. As always, the Council continues to operate within the Treasury limits, and Prudential Indicators are set out in Council's Treasury Management Strategy, and there are no issues here to highlight. Chair, this report makes it clear that Council budgets are under sustained pressure. The uncertainties created because of the unknown length of the pandemic and the resultant calculations, some of which are necessarily based on estimates, puts all councils in a challenging financial position. Put simply, for Bassetlaw, the result of any overspends in this financial year will inevitably increase the savings target for future years in which we expect to see potential changes in government funding arising from the long-promised spending review and the business rates retention scheme. The recommendations from this report, Chair, are at 7.1 to 7.3.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hill, is there anything you wish to add at all?
Yes, very briefly, Chair. This is the first report that members have seen that truly reflects some of the COVID impacts on the council's finances. You will be aware, or some members and officers will be aware, that we've been reporting a £1 million loss to central government, which reflects all the council's losses. While this report just says 138,000. The difference is that two things really. One, it doesn't account for unbudgeted losses. So, like the leisure centre's share of income that we get, we never budget for it, but nevertheless we probably won't get it this year. In fact, I can almost definitely say we won't get it this year. And secondly, the big thing, it doesn't reflect the impact on council tax and business rates collections. Those figures will only impact in future years, and this report only forecasts what's going to happen in 2021. So they will be seen in future years, and you will get some more information on that in the MTFP update, which is due on the 13th of October. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think, Chief Executive, I take it that you're, with your literal hand, you're looking to indicate there. So I'll just invite you in if that's what you wanted to do.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think there are two bits to this. One is that we are not going to get all the money that we've expended back again, and you can project that into a national situation and perhaps understand why. And I think that's been outlined by the portfolio holder and Mr. Hill. The thing that I'd like to stress is just the added uncertainty that all this brings to any planning whatsoever. And whilst we've got some certainty in the HRA up to a point, and some of the things there, as far as the general fund is concerned, the number of variables in the equation now and the amount of estimation that's going on is really unprecedented. So I really just wanted to make the point that, yes, we will have a medium-term financial plan, which I'm sure will be the best that can be produced with the information that we've got. But it is just that, and I think we are looking at some significant changes. Some may balance each other out, I'm not too sure, but we are entering a significant different environment than we've had before. And it's not just about seeing off reductions in revenue support grants or any funding like that, but it's the whole basis on which we work in terms of what income is allowed under the scheme, what isn't allowed under the scheme, what ministers have said is eligible for expenditure and what isn't. So you've got a myriad of things now that are going to be added to your financial plans, regrettably, and that is going to make life a bit more challenging for everybody, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a matter of government policy, funding for local authorities has been shifted in a way as to encourage all authorities to be self-financing and to stand on their own 2 feet. You've then had a national emergency, essentially, that has completely thrown all of that off course. And what I find particularly disappointing is that the assurances that have been made in the past about funding arrangements essentially do not hold water and continue to change almost on a weekly basis. And it is very difficult for any organisation to plan for the future if you don't have clarity as to how finances are going to be drawn together. So it's incredibly difficult to financially plan for the future when I'm afraid you get knocked off course every other week with different iterations of guidance from government and what they are prepared to support or not prepared to support. I remember being in a meeting once when the Prime Minister clearly said that local government will get what it needs. Well, we're not getting what we need. And it is very, very clear indeed that those assurances do not hold water, I'm afraid. Sorry, that's my perspective on things. Are there any comments or observations on this particular item at all? I've got Councillor Dukes indicating.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I say thank you to officers and the portfolio holder for keeping us up to date in all of this throughout the current crisis. It's been really helpful as a cabinet member to be kept up to date with what's going on with the finances, so that we can have some input and make sure that we are moving in the right direction. I think our situation, although not good, is much better than a number of local authorities and county councils, one might say, because of the prudent way in which finances are looked after by both the portfolio holder and our head of finance and the team. So I would like to thank them for that, and thank them for continuing to steer us on the right course, and making sure that we are in a good position when we come out of this for the residents of Bassetlaw.
Thank you very much. Councillor Scawthorne.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'd just like to mirror what Councillor Dukes has said and congratulate the finance on a magnificent job they're doing of trying to balance the book at these uncertain times. One of the pressures on the housing was the homeless, and this was brought about getting the homeless off the streets and paying for alternative accommodation for them, which the housing needs teams did a sterling job and managed to keep the cost at a minimum on this, and were quite prudent in their finances. That's also been helped by the government's U-turn on the evictions, so no forced evictions can now go ahead till the 23rd of September. But unfortunately, I think that's just a case of moving the goalposts a bit. But I can assure the members and officers that the housing needs team will be working with tenants and landlords to make sure that we don't have an influx of people putting on the homeless register, and we do work tirelessly to keep them going. There is a report coming up on the 13th of October as a review of the homeless services, and I look forward to bringing it to you then. Again, thank you to everybody in finance for what they've done.
Thank you very much. Councillor Evans, I didn't know if there's anything that you wanted to say in response to those points at all. You might want to...
Only, Chair, that any gestures of well-being towards the finance team or myself, gratefully received, be they financial, material, or of any other kind.
Thank you very much. I didn't know if there were any other comments or observations on this item. If not, and I'm not saying that there are any at this point, I think it's probably best to move to the recommendations as outlined. What I will ask, I'll run in alphabetical order, if that's all right with everyone, just to ensure that we capture that people have voted rather than asking if anyone's got any objections, I suppose. So if we can go in order, please. In terms of the recommendations that have been outlined, Councillor Dukes.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Agreed.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
For Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
I agree, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
Agree.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. The next agenda item that I will turn to, therefore, is 9A, and that is a report of the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods. It relates to allotment policy in relation to the keeping of bees. Key decision number 742 to be found at pages 63 to 70. And I will turn to Councillor Lee to outline the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report concerns the Council's allotment policy, which currently prohibits the keeping of bees on Council-owned allotment sites, and considers whether this should be amended to allow beekeeping to take place. In June last year, Cabinet considered a report following concerns about beekeeping by 2 individuals on an allotment site in Worksop who did not have permission. It was agreed to undertake a trial to inform a future decision about whether to amend the policy. An application process and conditions were developed by officers, including best practice from other local authorities, the British Beekeeping Association and the National Allotment Society. The conditions include evidence of training of the beekeeper, membership of the local and national beekeeping associations, insurance cover, endorsement from the allotment site steward following consultation with neighbouring allotment plot holders, construction of a 6-foot high surrounding mesh around the beehives. So this is a fence to direct bees upwards, not just outwards, and advisory notices on the site. Each application from an existing plot holder is assessed individually in terms of the proposed location and the applicant's compliance with the conditions, which are listed in Appendix 1 of the report. The only people allowed to keep hives will be existing allotment holders. If a hive is proposed to be located next to residential properties, householders would be consulted with by council officers prior to any decision being made. The application process includes an annual review to ensure that there is ongoing compliance with all conditions. In terms of the trial, initially there were 2 individuals who were keeping bees on the Stubbing Lane site in Worksop. One subsequently removed their hives as they were either unwilling or unable to comply with the conditions. The other has met the requirements and has continued to keep bees on the site with no issue or problems that have been reported to date. Future demand for beekeeping is expected to be low because of the specialist nature of the practice, and it is, as I've said, limited to existing plot holders only. Of course, there are risks if we make a decision to allow bees to be kept on allotment sites, and as landowners, the council are responsible for what happens on the land, and we have a duty of care to others from the activities that we choose to allow on the sites. This could also include liability or claims arising from the activity, although we think that the application process and the conditions have been designed to minimise those risks. Another thought is as the number of bees nationally has declined over recent years, so a decision to allow beekeeping on allotments may well help address this problem and provide positive environmental benefits. So the recommendation is in the report at section 6.1, and that's to amend the current allotment policy to allow the keeping of bees on council-owned allotment sites, subject to the applicant meeting the conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the report. Thanks, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much. Mr. Craig Taylor, anything you'd wish to add at all?
The only thing I would add is that it's a mixed picture in terms of other authorities. Locally, Sheffield City Council and Nottingham City Council both allow the keeping of bees on their allotment sites, as do many other parish councils as well, who are landowners for quite a lot of allotment sites. There are some places who their allotment policy is relatively silent on it, but it does appear that quite a number have made the decision to allow beekeeping, linking in with wider environmental strategies.
Okay, thank you very much. I will ask if there are any comments or observations. I know that a couple of colleagues have indicated already, so I'll go in that order. Councillor Dukes first of all, and then Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. I really welcome this report as a beekeeper myself. I think it's really important that we increase the number of bees across the district. There are some big gaps in terms of Bassetlaw's bee populations, and those need to be addressed. I did note that the Cabinet member did mention that part of the requirement was to be a member of a local beekeeping association. I welcome this. But that doesn't seem to be on the form at Appendix 1. It does ask for a BBKA number, but it doesn't ask what beekeeping association locally you are a member of. I wonder if that could be addressed, because that would be a first port of call in case of a problem with swarming when the beekeeper wasn't around, because they will look after each other's hives quite comfortably. So yes, I see it notes a backup beekeeper, but it would be useful to have the local association that they belong to as part of that as well, in case you can't get hold of any of those numbers. That's just my advice, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. If it's all right, can we just cover that cover that point at this stage before I bring in Councillor White. So the local association angle, I presume that could be captured through a slight tweak to a form, essentially.
That's right. We had already agreed that, but the form hasn't been updated, so it is just a tweak to that form.
Understood. Thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Taylor, we wanted to come in on that?
Yes, I was just going to say yes. The form can be amended to make that clearer, but it also currently requires a reference from the local beekeeping association as well. But we will make it more explicitly clear on what's requested on the form.
That's great. It sounds like that could be accommodated easily. Thank you very much. Next, then I'll turn to Councillor White.
Yes, I also very much welcome this report. I think it shows that we were being responsive to allotment tenants who wanted to have bees, and we've reacted very positively to that. But it also means that it requires a professional standard. If people are going to keep bees, they have to raise their standard and actually achieve the standards that are required of them. I'd call it a profession, because it's not something I could take on lightly. And I know that Councillor Dukes has done a lot of work in order to get to the standard that he needs to be in order to start keeping bees. And I think that's entirely appropriate. That if our allotment holders want to hold bees, then they have to do it in a very professional way. And I think this report reflects that.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Are there any other comments or observations at all? I think, colleagues, you've probably still got your hands up. If you could just pop those down, that'll help me work out if anyone else has indicated. And I don't believe anyone has, unless anyone shouts up, in which case we'll be moving forward then. The recommendation has been outlined. There's going to be a slight tweak to the form just to help with the process and make sure everyone's got everything that they need to. So the recommendations have been outlined as tabled, and so I'll first of all turn to Councillor Dukes as to whether they're for or against.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I'm also in favour of the recommendation. Councillor Lee.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you very much. That is carried. I'll then move to the next agenda item, which I have as 10A. That is a report in my portfolio area, policy, strategy and communications. It is a key decision found at page, key decision, sorry, 828, to be found at pages 71 through to 71 through to 86, sorry. I'll just say a few brief words in relation to outline of this report, which is Q1 performance outturn. Members of this committee will be aware that in terms of performance monitoring and management, COVID-19 had a significant impact in the way that all local authorities address issues of performance management. Basically, this was such a huge impact for everyone that it has impacted basically the areas that we do monitor and the reasons why we monitor. So the report that we have here is the start of a 12-month cycle that captures a slightly different report with a slightly different focus to it also. Really looking at and you'll see in this report a kind of a corporate health check essentially. Now you'll see that the performance areas that we focus upon not only look at the realities of council finance and the impacts of COVID-19 on the council's finance, the work that we do engaging with the business community. You'll see the work that we do with the, quite frankly, processing of the applications and the work that we do to turn the cogs for applications for local people and business. Now, the reality of the situation is that this is a report that also goes a fair way to demonstrate what the impact of COVID-19 has been upon the authority's financial income. In particular, you can see very clearly the impact upon our local town centre markets, for instance, that have been severely impacted, just like a lot of businesses have been impacted. Now, I don't want to really almost cover every single item. I don't think that's for me to do that. But this is a report that actually starts, it rather puts a lot of context into the impact of COVID-19 upon the local authority and the work that it does. There are other performance areas that are monitored in the background, but this is the work that we do, that we're publishing. And I think probably colleagues might want to comment on a few areas that they feel important if they wish to. So I don't know if colleagues, cabinet colleagues, do have any areas that they may wish to focus on or comment upon. I'll take Councillor Dukes first, I think. Oh, sorry, apologies. Before I invite colleagues in, I'll turn to Mr. Brown, because it's Mr. Brown and his colleagues that have been working, bringing this report forward to us.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to add, obviously, there's a commentary against the any performance indicators that are showing with an exception, but as you've explained, the predominant factor is that of COVID. Moving forward, in December, you will receive the Q2 performance report, and it's the intention, hopefully, obviously dependent on factors outside of the council's control, but the intention at this stage is that we will bring forward a more extensive suite, more of a return to the original performance framework, and that's what we're looking to do at this stage. So there is commentary there against those particular indicators that may be shown either at red or amber. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Apologies for that. Councillor Dukes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to highlight a couple of areas in my portfolio. You'll notice that average number of days to complete and process new housing benefit claims, it shows in red. We're only sort of 1 and a bit days over, and that's under some quite difficult situations in terms of staffing, getting people into work. We had some problems with illness and some long-term illness as well. But I think the team have worked really hard to get back to a situation where they're pulling that in unprecedented times, where those claims have increased quite dramatically with COVID-19. I'd also like to just question the number of businesses receiving direct advice here. It looks like 15 and 25. I know that officers have spoken to well over 2,500 of our businesses in Bassetlaw since the beginning of the COVID crisis, in order to make sure that they were receiving grants, to make sure that they were aware of what was available to them, what support the council was able to give them, what support the government were giving them. And it does seem to me that figure, I may just be misreading where that figure is coming from, but it does seem to me that we have had far more interactions with local business over this period of time than we do normally, and we should be lauded for that, because officers have put in an awful lot of work to get a lot of businesses, particularly in my ward, to a situation where they were able to survive and move forward. and I would like to thank officers for that work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor White, I think you've indicated, maybe in response to Councillor Dukes.
Yes, I very much agree with Councillor Dukes, is that the extent of the economic development team and the work that they've been doing, I think they've never worked harder, to be honest. They were focusing very much on the complex applications for people who are businesses who are applying for grants. They're actually chasing businesses who hadn't applied for grants, so they're making sure that everybody who had the opportunity did apply. They have contacted every business right across Worksop, Retford, Harworth and Tuxford to ensure that they are able to apply, and they're conscious of what's on offer to them from the authority. And also with the opening up of our towns, with the lifting of the lockdown, they've been very much out there and present and active, supporting local businesses as they put in social distancing measures and to enable them to operate within these very difficult times. I can't explain why the figure gives a very low PI. I expect the way that they engaged with businesses prior to COVID was very different, and therefore the measure was different to how they are working currently. But certainly we cannot, there's no criticism at all about how hard they worked during this period. No.
Thank you very much. Councillor Scawthorne, I think you've indicated there.
Thank you, Chair. Again, to just mirror what my colleagues have said, I'd just like to bring people's attention to the sign up for the council's newsletter. That is just unprecedented, that you've now got a target of 250, but the amount of people that's signed up to it is 2,980. This just shows the magnificent work the comms team, members and officers have worked in providing information about social media and the newsletter, and the magnificent job that we see every day on the council's Facebook page, and the amount of time posts get saved on that. I think it's just shows how well Bassetlaw does as a local council to keep people informed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Shaw, have you? Sorry,
yes,
Mr. Brown. Sorry, just a moment. Please. Sorry about this, Mr. Brown. I don't know if you wanted to come in on any of those comments thus far.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to reiterate the point that Councillor White was making there, that obviously that indicator in relation to business engagement was one that was set prior to COVID and was relating to a different regime. You will see within the commentary, within the preamble to of the report, that it does sort of detail some of those initiatives that members have referred to, the significant engagement that has taken place with businesses, both directly through the work done by council officers, but also working alongside the bid and the ambassadors that we've been able to have recently, who are working in both town centres and doing a lot of work directly supporting businesses with support and advice that Bev has been heavily involved with. So we have provided a bit of information around that to give that context. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to double check, as you'd indicated there. Sorry, Councillor Brand.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just referring to the comment that Councillor White made, that the Economic Development Team has been in touch with businesses in Worksop, Retford, Tuxford and Harworth. Does that mean that they have not been in touch with the many businesses in the rest of the more rural area of the district? I was very surprised to find that there are 59 businesses in Misterton benefited from grants during COVID, and 6 in West Stockworth. I had no idea we had as many as 59 in Misterton. But I just would like assurance that the rural areas haven't been forgotten in this.
Well, I can say, sorry, Councillor Brand, I'll bring Councillor White in a moment. There's been a flurry of people indicating to respond to that question. So I suspect the answer is no, we haven't. So I'll just turn to Councillor White first, but I will bring in others as well, who I'm sure be probably wanting to put your mind at ease. So first of all, Councillor White.
Yes, I'm sure Mrs. Alderton Sandbrook will follow me in saying no. What their focus was on in the 4 towns was in the opening up after the lockdown to assist those businesses with the opening up after lockdown. So it's mainly the traders on the high streets. They have, I can certainly categorically say, the rural businesses have not been ignored, and I think Councillor Dukes actually gave the example that so many of his local businesses have been supported, because it's absolutely critical. It's not just the businesses in our towns; it's that businesses everywhere have to have the support that they've needed at this very, very critical time. And I can say that the officers have been an email or a phone call away, and they've gone out of their way to help as many as they have possibly been able to do so.
Okay. Now, what I'm going to thank you. I'm hoping that's helpful. I suspect there's more information coming your way in a moment. I'll turn to Miss Alderton Sandbrook and then Councillor Shaw, then Mr. Hill. I'm hoping that if that's all right.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that in terms of the business support grants out there, that's applied to every business in Bassetlaw that met the criteria base set by the government. So as such, we have been working tirelessly to make sure that those eligible for those grants have been achieved. In terms of the 4 towns that we have in Bassetlaw, that has been relative to, as Councillor White suggested on there, very much about the reopening of the high streets. And we have focused our attentions on the main conurbations there in terms of making sure that the businesses are trading as best as they possibly can at this point in time and know how to do that appropriately so. And of course, we have not excluded any other rural town centres as well, where there have been high streets. And if they've approached us, we've happily helped them and given floor markers and signage and that kind of thing, as you're aware, Councillor Brand on there. So just to reiterate some key points on there and stats, we have had business support on the ground visiting every business across the 4 key town centres. We also, in addition to business support staff, have regular compliance monitoring staff out on the ground who regularly visit, on average, 40 businesses per week in Worksop, 40 businesses per week in Retford, and also out in Harworth and Tuxford as well, on a less sort of frequent basis, because there are less numbers of businesses there, of course, and we are reporting very, very high levels of compliance as a consequence. We couldn't have done this without the support of the BID, who've been absolutely intrinsic in helping us bring this forward, both in terms of the work of their ambassadors on the ground and in terms of deploying their staff to support us, and we are funding part of that as well in terms of business support and the COVID information officers out there. So we have, absolutely right, we've launched the business newsletter out to over 2,000 businesses at this point in time, and over 900 residents are signed up to that as well in terms of being COVID safe and offering a message of safety in our town centres. So business support and public support as well. There's lots of it going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Shaw.
Yes, well, I'm not going to repeat what everyone said, really, because it's really great how everyone has responded to this. I just wanted to really just say I welcome the corporate health check, and thanks for that, because it's an opportunity to acknowledge the work of the council officers in everything that is going on and has been. I did mention the bid and all the rest of it, but also about the officers. I mean, Craig's doing the COVID task force. Every senior officer and officer has played their part so far and will hopefully continue to do so. So it was an acknowledgement of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hill.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Very quickly, and Bev said a lot of what I was going to say, but just to give you some facts and figures, we've got about 4,300 businesses in Bassetlaw, and we've given 2,300 grants. So that's well over half of the businesses that have got the grants. That is not to mention others that were signposted towards other government help. I know a lot of businesses weren't eligible, and our economic development team and our business rates team signposted them onto other areas where they could get help. In addition to that, another 700 businesses, although some may overlap with the grants, they have got full business rates relief for the next year. That's about 12.5 million. So we've also contacted those businesses. How we did it is when we looked at our business database, looked at see which businesses were eligible, and then targeted those businesses, wrote to those businesses and contacted them through economic development. And we knew on the discretionary grants as well which ones qualified, and we encouraged them, positively encouraged those businesses to come to us, regardless of where they were. It was just an extract from our business database.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Unless there are any other comments or observations, I'll be tempted to oh, Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to comment on the improved street and environmental cleanliness and fly tipping. As most people know, we've started a partnership with District Enforcement and we're in the 3rd week of that, which seems to already be starting to have an impact on people in not littering in the town centre. People have been fined also for dog fouling. I think 9 people so far for not picking up dog fouling when it's happened. And also we've confiscated a vehicle who was fly tipping. So we are really pushing forward our efforts to make Bassetlaw a cleaner, nicer place to be. And it's one of the main concerns residents raise with us. So I think we're starting to really make a difference there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Unless there are any other comments or observations, I'll be tempted to move forwards. The recommendations are as outlined at 8.1 and 8.2. So it's that we determine if there's any further action as necessary to address performance indicators shown in the appendices, and that essentially if there are any queries, any further queries, then members should contact the Policy and Communications Unit. So those are the recommendations. We'll move forward, but are likely to be a move back towards the end of the year that might look a bit more familiar to us all, a bit more like business as usual as it was in the past. So those are the recommendations. If I could ask colleagues if they are for or against or abstain. First of all, Councillor Dukes.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Recommendations noted and for.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you very much indeed. I will then move on to agenda item 11. It's a report of the Cabinet Member for Regeneration. Agenda item 11A, Regeneration and Growth Strategy, Local Industrial Strategy Review, Key Decision 817, to be found at pages 87 through to 92. And I will turn to Councillor White to outline the report, please.
Okay, thank you. In March last year, Cabinet agreed to refresh our regeneration and growth strategy for 2014 to 2028 and develop a local industrial strategy for Bassetlaw. 12 new and emerging changes were identified as the basis for the review, alongside a recognition that there was a requirement to align the authority with the D2N2 Strategic Economic Plan, its Sept refresh, and the emerging D2N2 Local Industrial Strategy. Cabinet in July 2019 agreed the overarching thematic priorities, which included skills and employment, including social inclusion, innovation, infrastructure, business growth, heritage and tourism, rural economy, market towns and place. Cabinet also agreed to develop the strategy through inviting business input on future priorities and needs at a Business Voice event, refreshing our State of Economy report, engaging with D2N2 in the development of their key strategies, and involving members via a workshop to gain their input on the visioning and priorities. Since then, the draft D2N2 LIS was published in early March and work began on reviewing its proposals. However, the impact of the COVID-19 lockdown stalled progress on this due to resources needing to be focused on supporting businesses due to the impact of COVID-19. The purpose of the D2N2 LIS is a statement of direction, providing the ability to identify the USPs of the areas and to outline specific asks of government. The LIS contains 3 principles: productivity and the development of an education and skills framework, environmental sustainability, and principle 3, inclusion, supporting inclusive growth across the whole region. And these principles are reflected in our council plan priorities. COVID-19 has created an economic shock across the world, and the long-term impacts locally and nationally are still unknown. On the 12th of August, it was officially announced that the UK has entered into recession, following the economy contracting by 20.4% between April and June. The furlough scheme ends in October, and there is a risk of a second lockdown in winter. And whilst Bassetlaw cannot be compared with the likes of Oldham or Leicester, contagion rates in comparison to other Nottinghamshire districts remain high. The Economic Development Team have been tracking the impact of the virus on the labour market and business sectors alongside Nottinghamshire local authority colleagues and the LEP. In the light of COVID-19, D2N2 LEP are currently reviewing whether any changes are required to its local industrial strategy, and where there will be most likely an acceleration of the work identified within their 3 key principles. It is therefore proposed to update the state of economy report in the light of COVID-19, when there is a much greater understanding of the impact of government support being withdrawn in October, and to then hold a member workshop to share this report with them and to bring forward a draft strategy to Cabinet in January 2021. And there will then be a consultation process the following February and March, and it'll be brought back to Cabinet the following April.
Thank you very much. Is there anything further to add? Salderton Sandbrook, I'll turn to yourself.
I think the report is quite clear, Chair, in terms of timeframes and the progression forward. So I'm very happy to take any questions if any members have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for that outline. The comments, questions, observations, I'll turn to Councillor Dukes first, as indicated.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I really welcome this report, and I think it's really important that we put our own spin on an industrial strategy, particularly one from the D2N2 LEP, which is very short on reference to rural areas. And as a rural district, I think it's really important that we have our say, which is why I would encourage us to look at our emerging rural plan as part of this process. So that we do have some joined up thinking as far as that is concerned across the district. Again, we need to be leading and fighting for rural respect. Agriculture is an industry. It seems to be forgotten in many rural strategies. There are large industrial estates in Bassetlaw, Welbeck Estate being one of them. 52 businesses in one estate. It is a small industrial estate and needs to be recognised as such, and shouldn't be wrapped up as a heritage in cotton wool. So we need to be looking at rural in that guise. One thing which D2N2 have blatantly forgotten. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. I fully agree. Any other comments, questions, observations at all? Councillor White.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to that. I agree. The D2N2's LIS wasn't as comprehensive as we'd had hoped. It is very much focused on the conurbations and the two cities. And so I very much feel it's up to us to make sure that we remain at the table around D22 to shout our case very, very loudly, and so that we're not forgotten. And that has been our strategy for just over the past 12 months. But it's also very, very important for us to develop our own strategy. And one of the 12 tenets is our rural economy and the strength of our rural economy, and how we need to ensure that it's reflected within our strategy. And then we work to ensure that employment is created within our rural areas and our villages. I think that's absolutely imperative. It reflects a large amount of our district, and it'd be wrong for us to ignore that. And so I agree with you, Councillor Dukes, and that will be reflected within the strategy that will be produced next January.
Excellent. Thank you. Unless there are any other indications at this point, I'll be tempted to move to the recommendations that we have and ask colleagues in alphabetical order if they support them or not. First of all, Councillor Dukes.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. So moving on, also with the same area of service, essentially. So agenda item 11B, annual local infrastructure statement, key decision number 770, pages 93 to 116. And I'll hand over to Councillor White again.
Thank you. For the past 5 years, we have annually published via Cabinet a SIL infrastructure statement alongside a report on our Section 106 commitments. On the 1st of September 2019, the Community Infrastructure Levy Amendment regulations came into force. This replaces the SIL Regulation 123 list as the mechanism by which outlines the infrastructure projects that a local authority intends to fund via SIL. We are now required to produce an infrastructure funding statement, an IFS, which must include details of the levels of financial contributions and what non-financial developer contributions have been secured, both from SIL and from Section 106 agreements, and how this money has been spent. The IFS will include a statement on the future infrastructure projects that Bassetlaw intends to fund wholly or partly by SIL. It also sets out the SIL spending, protocol on how we'll allocate SIL receipts, and the prioritisation of infrastructure projects. Statements must be published annually on the Council's website, and this report includes the very first Bassetlaw IFS, which has been produced ahead of the government deadline of 31st of December 2020. Officers have assessed the existing Regulation 123 list schemes, and those projects have been transferred to our IFS. The list of schemes is currently under review, and there will be a member workshop in November where priorities and new schemes will be considered. There are some interesting headlines in our 2019-2020 IFS report. The last financial year was a boom period for major development construction, with the highest amount of demand notices issued for SIL payments, and £2.88 million was collected. Of that income, £503,000 was transferred to parish or town councils for local infrastructure projects. There is a cumulative amount of £5.48 million worth of SIL in the budget. Over £900,000 has been received as part of Section 106 planning obligations, and over £115,000 has been drawn down in this last year. There is a cumulative amount of £1.6 million worth of Section 106 monies in the budget. There are now 15 adopted neighbourhood plans that are eligible for 25% of local SIL monies. Shire Oaks, for example, was able to draw down £67,000 for local infrastructure projects. Nearly £146,000 has been committed to the capital programme to deliver works to the underpass at Retford £146,000 of local SIL monies has been committed to the capital programme to deliver works to the underpass at Retford train station, play facilities on Kings Park, and the HLF match for the Kings Park project. The SIL officer now works full-time to manage this ever-increasing workload, and 235 affordable housing units were secured via Section 106 agreements. I ask you to support the recommendations at 6.1 and 6.2.
Thank you very much. Miss Alderson-Sandbrook, anything to add at all?
Yes, please, Chair. Just a couple of points of clarification there. First of all, to highlight that we are ahead of the curve on this one. We've been publishing for 5 years now or so in terms of our transparency of process here, and now it's entrenched in law. But as such, you know, we've been doing that. We've been open and transparent for a long time because that's the way we play the game here in Bassetlaw. We want to be as open as possible. Secondly, just to highlight, Councillor White identified that Shire Oaks, the neighbourhood proportion as it's now called, old style name of local monies on there, will be released once this report has been approved by Cabinet and be available for that community to draw down. That's historically how we have managed this process. Once Cabinet have endorsed this report, that gives the thumbs up to allocate those monies accordingly. And then finally, in terms of a SIL officer working full time, we have approval for SIL officers to work full time. They're still in a part-time capacity, but we're about to go out for recruitment on that. So that will be in place very, very shortly. We need the bums on seats there because we're extremely busy in this area. We've got a lot of development happening and those receipts are coming in. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. Any comments, questions, observations at all? I can see that Councillor Dukes has indicated, so I'll take Councillor Dukes first.
Thank you, Chair. You wouldn't expect me not to mention something about neighbourhood plans when it appears in the report. I'm very welcome to see the number of neighbourhood plans in Bassetlaw. I think the work that is done on neighbourhood plans is really important. I just wish that the government would sort themselves out in terms of changing the goalposts, in terms of number of years that these seem to be valid, particularly when they say that they want community engagement. They want communities to be engaged in the process. To shorten that time frame, which seems to be the case at the moment, is putting a lot of neighbourhood plans at risk, particularly in their review stage, particularly in the stage that they're at, and this needs sorting out as quickly as possible. And I think that we need to get together as neighbourhood planners again once we can, and make sure that we are lobbying government to make these neighbourhood decisions as important as they used to be, and stop trying to water them down. Thank you, Chair.
Government policy to undermine the hard work of local people, quite frankly. Pulling the rug from under them is never normally helpful after they've gone through such a large amount of work. Sorry, Councillor Brand, I think it's indicated.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. Wholeheartedly support what Councillor Dukes has just said. I think he's been involved in neighbourhood plan processes, as have I, and it's a long process that really saps the enthusiasm of local people, and then to find that perhaps 2 to 3 or even 4 years work is then deemed almost valueless is, you know, very, very disheartening. So I support that. Just a question relating to the list on page 107 in the report, which lists the parish councils that are due, that have money available. Are the councils notified of that, or how do they know how much money is sitting in the kitty for local infrastructure projects?
Okay, thank you. I don't know who might want to help with that, but it's a pretty decent nuts and bolts question there. Miss Alderson Sambrook.
Yeah, I can come back on that one, Chair, and just say that, as I mentioned previously, that Cabinet has always been the declaration of the monies that are available. We automatically get in touch with town councils and parish councils to let them know that this money is available for either drawdown, or we'll hold it for them if they want us to do that until they've accumulated enough over a number of years to deliver that sort of major piece of infrastructure that they might want to do. So we will notify them accordingly. Yeah.
That's great. Excellent. Any other questions, observations at all? If not, I think we'll probably best to move to the recommendation as outlined, essentially. And I'll ask colleagues if there are for or against or abstain. Councillor Dukes.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That is carried. The next item that I will turn to then is at 12A, and that is a report from the Cabinet Member for Finance relating to Worksop Town Football Club, to be found at pages 117 to 120 of the agenda, and I'll turn to Councillor Evans to outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this report is in response to a request from Worksop Town Football Club for a financial contribution from Bassetlaw District Council towards the club's improvement plan. The details of the improvements the club want to make and the associated costs of £985,000 can be seen at paragraph 3.1. The details of the requested contribution from Bassetlaw District Council can be seen at paragraph 3.2, which are a rent-free and a rates-free period of 20 years and a refund of the planning application fee of over £5,000. The request for council investment in the football ground is based on the benefit this would bring to local people by contributing to the vibrancy of this facility. For those members unfamiliar with the history of the club and consequently its place in the history of Worksop, Bassetlaw District Council has in the past made and recovered loans to Worksop Town Football Club, as it has also done for Retford United Football Club. Bassetlaw Council owns the ground, for which there is in place a 99-year lease, which began in 1990. The current charge for rent is £4,500 per annum. However, Council has to consider a number of issues in reaching any decision on this matter. Strategically, the corporate plan supports Council's commitment to investing in communities and responsibilities for community well-being. Legally, Council will be acting in accordance within its statutory general power of competence and public well-being by supporting the club, but financially, these are challenging times for Council. Furthermore, it would be unwise to set any such precedent of waiving national non-domestic rates or the statutory planning fees. However, these conditions do not apply to locally determined rental payments. On balance, after considering all these facts, it is proposed that the ground rent of £4,500 per annum be waived for a period of 5 years, plus Council will seek representation on the board of Worksop Town Football Club with the purpose of providing some community oversight and, as owners of the ground, create better links with the club. Chair, there are 2 recommendations at 6.1 and 6.2.
Thank you very much. Mr. Taylor, I think the Chief Executive, anything you'd wish to add on this one?
No, thank you, Chair. Fairly straightforward, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll then turn to as to whether there are any comments, questions, observations, and I can see that Councillor Shaw has indicated, but yes, Councillor Shaw indicated and then took it down and then nearly confused me. So
Sorry.
I'll take the Councillor Shaw.
Sorry, Chair. I was preempting taking my hand down. As health and wellbeing portfolio holder, I was interested to see this, and at pre-agenda, we had lots of discussions around how the links to the football club works in the community, to the local sports clubs and supporting young men and young women in football. And I think it's really good that what's happening, and I think it promotes health and well-being. And as long as we do get a place on the board, which I hope we do, but also that we continue to work in partnership, or the club continues to work in partnership with very excellent local facilities and groups linked across Bassetlaw. I welcome this report.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. There's no doubt that a thriving local football club is an asset to any town or community. There's a large amount of investment that is taking place down at Sandy Lane. The site has been transformed, and that has been very welcome indeed, I know, from local community and local fans. And there's a lot of work that's taking place there. So I do recognise also that it is very difficult financially for the authority. So it does look to me as though there's a balance to be struck, and this is an attempt to achieve that. Councillor White.
Yeah, Councillor Greaves, I think you said most of what I was going to say, but what I'd say is that it's for the first time for years we've actually seen some investment into Worksop Town. For many years it's all been all talk, no action, and so for the first time they've actually put their money where their mouth is, and they're investing to make the club more viable. And what that has to mean is that it has to be accessible to the local community. And what I want to see is that to actually happen. And if we are going to support it, then it does mean somebody sitting from the council, sitting on the board and ensuring that the local community benefits from it, whether it's boys, girls, men, women, so that it becomes a community asset rather than a private club for the benefit of a small number of people. And that's the only way, I think, that by supporting them that we can guarantee that there will be a payback for the community.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Are there any other comments, questions, observations at all? If not, then I think that probably be minded to move to the recommendations and ask colleagues in alphabetical order if they're for, against, or abstain. So first of all, Councillor Dukes, please.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you very much. That is carried. The next agenda item I will turn to is at 13A. It is a report in my portfolio area, and the title of which Local Resident Survey and Devolution Matters, to be found at pages 121 through to 123 of the agenda. And I'll just say a few words in relation to outlining of this report. And then I'll invite in the Chief Executive also to say a few words. Later on this year, it is unclear whether it will be September or October. The government have made it clear that they intend to publish the white paper in relation to devolution. The government have made it very clear over a number of weeks, albeit with very odd timing in the midst of a national crisis, that they wish to see changes to the structures of local government. This has been heavily trailed in the local government press, and it is unclear at the moment what the detail of the white paper will contain. It is likely to involve almost the processes through which areas can move from one set of local government structures to a next, whether that is through agreement or otherwise. What we also have is that up and down the country, there are proposals that are being developed right now for unitary authority structures, and these all again are through either agreement and collaboration or actually what might be described as unilateral bids being submitted to government. Either way, and depending on the content, it certainly looks as though government policy and the government narrative is around pursuing a course of change in the future structures of local government. And we need, as an authority, to understand the detail, and we also need to be able to look at different issues relating to structures, and also to engage with local people and business about that. It's certainly the recommendation in the report is to identify a sum of money that can be used to support engagement and also to support work to look at the different issues linked with the devolution white paper when it is released. The range of options, I would say, that would be sensible to look at go from status quo through to different permutations of future structures. I think it important, however, despite all that, the most important thing is not to simply do nothing, but the important thing is to look at the direction of government policy and also look towards what is the best for the local area. And I have a very keen eye, as we all do, about how local services are best anchored and delivered to support local communities in this district. The important thing is that there is work that will need to be done, and we need to allocate funding for that work to be done. You'll see from the report that back in 2018, the County Council proposed a unilateral unitary bid to government, and at the 11th hour that was shelved. It would not surprise me if the County Council were to revisit that work in order to submit a bid in the near future. But that is something that we need to keep an eye on. So the most important thing here is that we look towards identifying funding to support assessments and to crunch numbers and to engage with local people. This is an agenda that doesn't seem to be going away. I disagree strongly with the timelines, and I think that there's a lot that needs to be done in this country in order to support the economy and local people. But it appears very strangely that the government are interested in structures when actually we're in probably the worst recession that this country's ever seen. So that's all I'd wish to say at this point, and I'll hand over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. I was asked in about June time, I bet you thought you were going to be doing all this stuff with COVID-19, did you? And I said, no, I didn't. If you'd asked me now, did I think I'd be dealing with local government reorganisation again? The answer is no, I wouldn't, but indeed we are. This really tries to take forward what we have set out to do as an organisation in the next 12 months in terms of the resident survey. We've also already done one of members and one of staff, and it's trying to make sure that the offer that the council provides in a distributed situation is stronger and appropriate. That has been trumped, as you say, by recent developments, and I believe the push is to get this in next month if possible, and therefore we have about 8 weeks to respond if that timetable proves to be the case. So there is a requirement to look at the options if we are forced into that position. I think as a matter of course we want to survey residents and ask them what their views are, and this report seeks to do that. I would only ask for one additional amendment, please, and that is in the request for the resources that normal procurement procedures are waived in this occasion, as we will be working with other district councils and won't be able to get 3 tenders. We will have to work in concert with them as any response is brought forward. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, and I will certainly support that tweak that normal procurement procedures are waived given the work that will be required with other authorities and timelines. I'll first turn to Councillor White, then Councillor Dukes.
It is weird, isn't it? Whilst this country's facing the biggest recession ever, whilst people are trying to struggle as they recover from the COVID lockdown, possibly facing another lockdown as we go into the winter, we as local government are going to have to look the other way in order to think about structures and processes. I cannot think anything more ridiculous and inappropriate at this very, very difficult time in everybody's lives. But what also worries me is about the delivery of local services and being in contact with local needs. I think we talked earlier on about how our economic development team were out there communicating with local people, actually going out to meet traders, and that connectivity, I think, will go if we become a council that's run from Nottingham City. I can't see the benefits of it. The government keeps saying it's about money, but I see the big unitaries having big financial holes that they can't get out of. So I can't see how the county, by sucking in the resources of the districts, will suddenly become financially viable. It just does not make sense. It does not add up. And the biggest loss are the people of Bassetlaw. They have already regarded themselves as part of the frozen north when it comes to resources being dealt out by the county, by the LEPs, and now this will be the biggest blow that will be ever given to them. And I feel that the public don't know what's going to happen. This is going to be poured onto them or given to them, and their futures will be shaped by a unitary based in Nottingham. Not acceptable at all, in my mind.
Thank you. Councillor Dukes.
I'd like to agree with what Councillor White has said, and I think the previous item, or one of the previous items that I was talking about, where we're being told that local voices matter, local voices are really important, it's really about the local. We hear that flapping of lips continually from central government and from county, and they take those powers away from us. They take those powers away continually from us. And try and centralise stuff. Well, it's got to stop. You know, we've had a raft of reports here today which have shown how we deal with our local agenda and our local people, and how we work hard as an organisation to support our local communities. And being done from 45 to if you're on the south of the district, to an hour and 20 minutes away on the other side of the River Trent seems a ridiculous way to talk about being local. I've spent this morning and most of the day shortlisting for a new manager for the food bank here in Bassetlaw. That work is going to be very, very important, and the organisations that support that are supported through Bassetlaw District Council. They're not dealt with by a larger organisation somewhere else. It's very local. The response to the COVID crisis for those most vulnerable people, for those people most in need, was done locally, done by Bassetlaw District Council, taking the reins very early on with BCVS and other third sector organisations locally to make sure that those people were looked after much more quickly than most of the other districts in Nottinghamshire, and much more quickly than the county council who get their act together. So I think it's absolutely wrong that you say that you're looking at this devolution to support local people, when what you're actually doing is taking away the local input. And we need to be talking about this properly, making sure that we're doing what this report is saying, working with other districts to find out and make sure that we are getting the best deal for the people of Bassetlaw. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Brand and then Councillor Scothall.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. It wasn't so many years ago that some dignitaries from the County Council were invited to Misterton for an event and were heard to say, oh, we didn't realise the county went this far north. That puts it in context. But a piece that I picked up over the weekend in the news was some research that's been done for the County Council's network by PricewaterhouseCoopers. And in that research, they say that amalgamating districts and counties could cost money and create risk for children's services. They also say that the likelihood of performance dropping is high. I think that says all we need to know, and I am very concerned, obviously from, you know, even farther frozen north, very concerned about the delivery of services were this to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Scothall.
Chair, after listening to everybody's report, everybody's comments on this, it really saddens me at a time like this that we've got a Bassetlaw people here that have been through a terrible year. Some residents are still not back in their houses after the floodings, or they're still not settled back in their houses, and they've had to go through all that. And now they're going through the COVID-19 crisis. And it's Bassetlaw councillors and Bassetlaw staffs that are walking the streets when these things happen, that are working in the food bank to deliver services to our most vulnerable people, that are working with tenants, that making sure that they're not becoming homeless. It is Bassetlaw that is doing that, not Nottingham, not Nottinghamshire. They're sat down there, and let's say this for what it is. It is about the money. It's about us bailing out the bigger council. It's about an outgoing leader that is worried about her future, that the only way that she sees that she's got a political future is by taking over Bassetlaw and the rest of the districts. We have to stand up for what we believe in, and we believe in supporting the local people of Bassetlaw. And while I'm sat here, I'm going to be shouting from the rooftops to say that we need to stand up for Bassetlaw and the other districts and make sure that we stay as we are.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shaw.
Yes, well, I concur with obviously my colleagues' views. I think as a district councillor, a lot of the time we have to ask our county colleagues, councillors, county councillors and officers in the county for things like for the roads or infrastructure that we as the district can't do. And we are so late. It takes such a long time to get responses from anyone because of the capacity of the work that they do, but also the officers that are a long way away. I spent all my career working in the county council and driving that 1 hour plus, and it almost ended up being 2 hours at the end of my career to get to the county. And to expect county councillors and colleagues within the county to do the work that has been described tonight in reports, and you know the work of our officers in the district council have been absolutely incredible and outstanding in a crisis. And I think going back to what Steve was, Councillor Scawthorne was saying about the floods, you know, everyone came out with brooms and brushes and you know, on the ground worked, and then we're now working strategically. It wouldn't be done from the county. We know it wouldn't be done, and residents also need to be very aware of that.
No, thank you very much indeed. There's no doubt at all that if the county council's network got its way, there would be a very odd state of affairs with some very, very large unitary county authorities, many of which would be so large as to be unworkable and unmanageable, like we see in some other areas where there are very large unitary authorities that actually create more challenges than they do solve problems. And it is also very clear that if there was a unitary county in Nottinghamshire, quite frankly, the idea of local services would be very, very different. And I don't really believe that anyone feels confident that there would be a good level of local service delivery for Bassetlaw residents from West Bridgford. I don't feel that that is the right way forward at all. I felt that previously, and I certainly feel the same way now. So we will see where this agenda takes us, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see some fanciful proposals, perhaps even stealing people's right to vote next May, if they could get their way. But let's just see on that one, shall we? Because there'd be some, if people did agree to such proposals, it'd be certainly very interesting. There's been an amendment to the report in relation to matters of procurement. I'm hoping that that's been captured by the committee clerk in the right way. I just take it that that it has been. So I'll just turn to colleagues as to whether colleagues are for or against the recommendations. Councillor Dukes.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll next turn to agenda item 14A. That is a report of the Cabinet Member for Regeneration in relation to an update to Cabinet on the outputs and achievements of the North Nottinghamshire Skills and Employment Board, pages 125 to 134 of the agenda. A very good initiative, started off locally here in Bassetlaw. Councillor White.
Thank you. A Cabinet report on 9th July 2019 gave an update on the establishment of the North Nottinghamshire Skills and Employment Board. The first meeting was held on the 16th of July 2019, and it was agreed that this should be led by the private sector. And Julie Byrne, who is now Business Development Executive at TBP Law Limited, was elected chair, and Nikki Bunfield, who is the Regional Head of HR at Siriato, is now the Vice Chair. The board has since met 6 times. The North Nottinghamshire Skills and Employment Partnership has also been established to deliver on the priorities and strategic direction of the board. This first met in May 2019 and involves 33 individuals from 28 stakeholder organisations, ranging from secondary schools, training providers, the DWP and business membership groups. There are now 75 members, with 43 attending meetings and 32 forming a consultative group, and they link in on appropriate agenda and themes. They have developed a delivery plan aligned to the D2N2 People and Skills Advisory Board plan and the Council plan. A framework to track and report on labour market data. They have delivered the workshop Untapping Talent event, which was held on the 18th of October 2019. They delivered the first What Next Careers Fair on the 1st of October 2019 with over 1,650 students in attendance from schools from right across Bassetlaw. They delivered the first apprenticeship fair during National Apprenticeship Week in March earlier this year. But unfortunately, COVID-19 has impacted on the calendar events and activities and the activities. And so this means that the work has now shifted to online with more meetings and the acceleration of a one-stop shop website on skills and employment provision being developed. They have been involved in the Newbridge Court Higher Education Campus and the establishment of a task and finish group focusing on employability to support the newly unemployed and those furthest away from the labour market. A great deal has been achieved in its first year, responding very quickly to the COVID-19 crisis and its wider impacts. And this is the first annual report to Cabinet, and I really want to thank the work of Julie Beresford and Tim, his surname is gone. Tim
Gladman.
Thank you, Gladman, for the very hard work and the focus that they have put into this to ensure that there has been a higher output and high workload. And I ask you to support the recommendations at 5.1 and 5.2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms Alderson-Sandbrook, anything to add at all?
Just a quick one, Chair, just to say that this is a fantastic achievement of local input and benefits for local employers, as well as the general public and our youngsters in the district as well. So really across the board, it appeals to everyone. So what we've established here is not just a talking shop. These are not meetings for meeting's sake. There are demonstrable outputs here that are spelt out in the report. It's a really successful project, and I would draw members' attention to the project management tracker that's at the end of the report, which does demonstrate the amount of work that's been involved in delivering this and will continue to do so. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any comments, questions, observations? Turn to Councillor Dukes first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just say this is a really important piece of work. It's a fantastic report. It's a fantastic thing to see, and is particularly pertinent when we're going to see an awful lot of people looking at what their next step is going to be once we get through this crisis. I think we're all aware that once the furlough scheme does start to unravel completely, we are going to see more and more people needing the kind of support from business that we're seeing here. And I think this is a really important initiative, really important agenda, and a really good local way of dealing with the issues that we're finding in Bassetlaw, and the businesses in Bassetlaw are finding that they need to be filled. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments, questions, observations at all? Take that as a no. This is a incredibly positive initiative, without doubt. I've been fortunate enough to attend a couple of the events that have been held, and the amount of, I suppose you could say, energy in the room, the numbers of pupils and employers and skills providers has been quite incredible. And there is, it really goes to show the amount of local work that can be done directly with business, led by business, and the needs of local business and the community. Incredibly positive indeed. And this is going to have a transformative effect upon upon local business, and also the opportunities of local people and local students in particular. So it really is a very positive step forward indeed, and very much welcomed. The recommendations have been outlined, so I'll just turn to colleagues and ask if they are supported or not. So first of all, Councillor Dukes.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Scotthorne.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor White.
For.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll turn to the next agenda item then, at 15A. It is a referral from JEC on the 8th of July, minute number 34A, and this is the driving policy to be found at pages 135 to 166 of the agenda, and this is a report that's essentially been through its development and consultative stages between the authority and trade unions relating to the driving policy and procedures for the authority. We have, as an authority, changed as A1 Housing has come back in house, and there's been a number of changes there, and also we do try to review policies in a timely way. But I'll turn to Karen Charles if there's anything you may want to add in relation to this report. It's been through its processes and it's found its way here for adoption, I understand.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, this policy is primarily a health and safety policy designed to protect our drivers, our other staff, and of course members of the public when our staff are going about their work and driving on council business. It clearly sets out the rights and responsibilities that involves, and it's been drawn up primarily in conjunction with the manager who has responsibility for environment services, which includes street cleaning, grounds maintenance, refuse and recycling staff and vehicle maintenance. But it's also been the subject of consultation with other heads of service and managers of drivers across the organisation. And as you mentioned, the housing service coming back in-house also includes a number of drivers. It also recognises the responsibilities under the new position created by Cabinet of Fleet and Transport Operations Manager, which seeks to consolidate all of the different rules and requirements for drivers and fleet management across the council. It's been to JEC, is now recommended to Cabinet for formal adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any comments, questions, observations in relation to this item? I'll take that as a no. So very briefly, I'll ask colleagues if they are in favour of the adoption of this recommendation. Councillor Dukes.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
For, Chair.
I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne?
4, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw?
4.
Thank you. And Councillor White?
4.
Thank you very much. We next move on to agenda item 16A, and that is the report, the minutes of Health and Safety Committee on the 15th of January. It does seem quite a while ago now, consider everything that's happened this year, to be found at pages 155 to 158. And are there any questions or comments or observations in relation to that item? If not, I'll then turn to agenda item number 16B, and those are the minutes of JEC from the 15th of January, to be found at pages 159 to 162 of the agenda. And similarly, are there any comments, questions, observations in relation to those minutes? I will take that also as a no. We will therefore next be moving towards the private agenda items. So the next items are section B are items for discussion in private. And in a moment, the live stream will be stopped as we move to consider those confidential items. And I would like to thank everyone that's been able to observe today's meeting. So there is a bit of formality before we move into that private agenda. Can I please confirm that in accordance with Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, and after considering the public interest test as set out by the officer in the body of the report, that members agree that the following items of business involve the lack of disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 2 and 3, and therefore the in accordance with schedule section 100A of the Act, the press and public be excluded from the meeting. And I will ask colleagues in relation to the remaining agenda items if colleagues are in favour of that course of action. Councillor Dukes?
4, sorry, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans?
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. I'm also in favour. Councillor Lee?
I'm in favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scawthorne?
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw?
4.
Thank you. And Councillor White?
Yeah, agree.
Thank you very much. So in a moment, the live stream, I think, is likely to be paused or suspended or whatever the most appropriate technical phrase is.